We go back, Link, back to Faron Woods. This is Legendary Adventures, a Legend of Zelda playthrough podcast. This week we're breaking a curse on Link with a visit to the Sacred Forest Grove, and venturing into the isolated desert to find the Mirror of Twilight within the depths of the haunted Arbiter's grounds. The Forest Temple rests deep in the Faron Woods. This, however, is not the end of the woods. It is possible to venture deeper. As Link and Midna return to the woods, they find a monkey in distress. It's a monkey that we are familiar with. She wears a flower on her head. She's being chased by some large wooden marionettes. The puppets have no clothing save for giant leaves which they wear as capes. They also have no strings. They're designed with round heads, with red eyes, and large wicked grins. Link is able to take them out easily. As a thank you, the monkey tells Link about a lovely wooded area on the other side of the cliff the Forest Temple sits on. The monkey says she climbed over there only to be attacked by the marionettes. What's in those woods anyway? There's no real trick to getting to the Sacred Grove beyond the cliff. Midna grants Link the use of her jump ability, and we spring across massive roots, cliff faces, and pinnacles of stone. We also dodge swinging pendulums while walking across tight ropes. Just outside the Forest Grove, there is a Howling Stone. The wind that passes through this one plays the Prelude of Light from Ocarina of Time. Once Link successfully howls it back, he is transported again to a spiritual realm. As Link and the Golden Wolf howl the tune together, we note the castle is behind the Golden Wolf, and then it challenges Link to find him. A mark on the map shows he's outside of Castletown's south gate. We then enter the Sacred Grove. There is a second Howling Stone here. This one is different. The hole through the center is triangular. This is not a stone to summon the Golden Wolf. Instead, it will open a path through the grove. We listen to the tune, and we make out the notes of Zelda's theme. Howling out the tune summons a forest imp. He wears a pointed hat, leaf cape, and has a face that matches the marionettes that we saw earlier. The design is different, but I think most longtime fans will recognize this is the Skull Kid who first appeared in Ocarina of Time, and who played a significant role in the events of Majora's Mask. He holds a set of pipes. When he blows a long sustained note on them, the marionettes fall from the sky. The Skull Kid then causes a door to appear leading into the forest and runs away. We have to chase the Skull Kid through the forest. As we do, the marionettes spawn endlessly. I try to ignore them. We find where the Skull Kid is hiding and attack him in order to get him to move to a new hiding place. It's the Twilight Princess version of the Lost Woods. And if that wasn't obvious enough, a new arrangement of the Lost Woods theme from Ocarina of Time plays. This version is more mysterious than the original. It's anchored by piano arpeggios with the melody played on flute. Eventually, the Skull Kid passes through a stone door, leading to a man-made circular structure. This structure has seen better days and now lies in ruin. The Skull Kid moves between the scattered remains and summons marionettes. We need to hit the Skull Kid 3 times. I find the best way to do that is to take out the marionettes, and then hit him while he summons more. I took a fair bit of damage as I attempted to use Midna's Dark Energy attack to take them all out at once. I was so careless I actually died on my GameCube playthrough and had to do the whole sequence over again. I managed to get through it without much trouble the second time around. And I had much less trouble on my HD playthrough on Hero Mode, go figure. After we hit the Skull Kid 3 times, he vanishes, and a doorway deeper into the structure appears. Through the door we find 2 stone statues, standing on either side of an arched doorway. On the ground in front of these statues is a circular design with a Triforce on it. We howl Zelda's theme atop this mark, and the statues awaken. The world goes black, the ground disappears, and square platforms arrange themselves in the shape of a heart. Blue light fills the linework designs on the statues, and they leap to stand on either side of Link. One in front of him, one behind. Then, the statues speak. "We are guardians of this land. Guide us to where we once stood." This is one of the hardest, if not the hardest puzzle in the game. The statues move when Link does. We need to jump platform to platform to move the statues back to their starting position. The trick is, they move opposite to each other, and I never solved this puzzle on my first try. I've played through Twilight Princess many times, and I still spend several minutes working to get the statues back in place. Director Eiji Aonuma talked a bit about this puzzle in his 2007 interview with Nintendo Dream. Early images from the game released in 2005 show Link walking through the forested area next to one of these statues. The interviewer asked him if that statue was cut, and Aonuma replied, "He's in the game. You can see him when you get the Master Sword." The interviewer then connected that the statue is one of the Guardians that we just met. They stated that a lot changed since 2005. Aonuma replied, "They got harder." Asked for a hint on how to complete the puzzle, Aonuma said it was all about persistence. "You'll solve it if you try many times. It's curious, if you go to square off thinking it's difficult, you'll fall into a labyrinth. But if you go to the bathroom and then give it another try, you'll solve it easily." He continued, "If you think about it too much, you'll fall into a cesspool, so just try solving it with your mind blank. Of course there's a fast way to solve it though, but struggling has its good points too." He concluded, "It was for getting the Master Sword, so you had to struggle for it." He laughed. "It took me around 13 minutes to solve the puzzle on my HD playthrough. This was the first version of the game I played while preparing for this season. On my GameCube playthrough, I managed to solve the puzzle in about 7 minutes. Once we have the statues back in their original positions, the door behind them opens. Through the door, we find a familiar scene. A sword stuck into a pedestal, not unlike the legendary sword in the stone. It also bears a similarity to promotional art from A Link to the Past. Link has no opposable thumbs to use to call forth his inner King Arthur in order to draw the blade, but that doesn't stop him from trying. He approaches the blade, and the wind picks up. There's then a blinding flash of white. Link is suddenly human again, and able to live out the Arthurian fantasy. He draws the sword. Midna caught the magical fragment that was driven into Link's head and kept him in his wolf form. She points out that they can use it to their advantage, allowing Link to become a wolf at will. With the ability to turn into a wolf at any time, Link and Midna can now fast travel, fight pose, and take advantage of Link's wolf senses at any time he desires. And this is the point where Twilight Princess truly gets moving. Midna asks a favor. She wants Link to accompany her to find the Mirror of Twilight. It's hidden somewhere in Hyrule. The world has opened up significantly. Players can travel pretty much wherever they please at this point, but there are still a few regions and treasures that are hard-gated. But for the most part, Link is free to move around. The amount of time spent on the story also notably decreases. In fact, for the first time, players are not told directly where to go. Well, I mean, they were. Telma told Link about her secret organization and told him to come to the bar. And the postman will stop Link the next time he steps onto Hyrule Field with a letter from Telma reminding him to come to the bar. However, these hints are less heavy than the previous ones, and players have much more freedom to choose where they want to go. Aonuma explained why the story takes a back seat in the second act of the game, in an interview with Nintendo World Report in 2007. He said, "Because it had the Light World and the Twilight, it was necessary to explain what exactly Twilight was thoroughly, so the player understood exactly what the goal was in the game. As Link progressed through the game, he basically lifted the Twilight off these different realms. So toward the end of the game, it wasn't really necessary to focus so much on the story and focus more on the action. I used this time to tackle some side quests and activities. While exploring Hyrule Field as a wolf, we can use Link's wolf senses to find spots to dig. They show up as dark spots on the ground with sparkles on them. Most of these are small and will yield rupees, and occasionally recovery hearts. That is if you're not playing on hero mode. There are, however, some larger round spots. These lead to underground grottos. Each grotto has the same layout. What's inside them is different. Most have some sort of combat challenge, but some feature some minor torch lighting puzzles. Some offer pots with rupees. After defeating the enemies or solving the puzzle, a chest will appear. Most of them hold rupees as a reward, but a couple have heart pieces. Some of these grottos offer only a variety of chews to fight. In Twilight Princess, players can scoop the jelly of a defeated chew into a jar and use it as a potion, meaning that these grottos essentially offer you free potions. Just be careful with the purple potions because they can hurt you. Inside Malamart in Kakariko Village is Gor Ibizo. The Goron Elder has taken up residence inside the shop. He's collecting donations as part of an expansion plan for Malamart. This is a multi-step side quest, and frankly one of the biggest in the game. The first step is to collect donations needed to repair a bridge from North Eldenfield to Castletown. Director Eiji Aonuma briefly described the idea behind this quest and its inspirations in his interview with Nintendo Dream. He said, "That was developed from the money-saving system in Majora's Mask. Trusting your money to someone else must leave you thinking, huh? Now if it's about fundraising, there could be a reward. Isn't it exciting?" He continued, "Once you get an item, you don't need to have a large amount of money. We came up with this fundraising system when we were thinking of what rupees could be useful for. The shop in Castletown is a luxury shop. It requires a shoe shine to even enter. It also charges more for its products than the player could ever afford. Mallow plans to buy this shop as his second location, and offer discount prices. The Goron Elder tells us 1,000 rupees are needed to repair the bridge. I had 1,000 at this point when playing in the HD version, so I paid it all. However, because of these smaller wallets in the original version, I had only 600. Meaning I did not complete the bridge right away. I wound up completing the Malamart quest later in my playthrough as a result of this. Another round of fundraising is needed to complete the purchase. We'll take care of that in a future episode. The Goron Elder Gorligs sits outside of Malamart and Kakariko meditating. With the bridge completed, he will ask us to help him. He says there's a Goron who works in Castletown who has not returned to the village, despite the fact that the bridge has been repaired. He asks us to check on him. We then ride to the newly repaired bridge and find a Goron laying on the ground near the gate. He complains he's not feeling well, but says some hot spring water would fix him up. We return to Gorligs, who prepares us a barrel of spring water to carry to him. We have to carry it by hand without the help of Epona. There are many enemies in the field, including Bulblins, Kargaroks, and Levers. It's no easy task to successfully carry the barrel without breaking it. I find it easiest to walk along the edge of the ravine on the outer edge of the field. The Levers won't appear here. There's also a chance you can slip by the Bulblins and Kargaroks unnoticed. It's not a guarantee, however. I nearly lost a barrel on my GameCube playthrough when I did this particular quest. A Bulblin shot me and the barrel fell. Thankfully, it landed flat on the ground and did not break. When we reach the Goron, we throw the barrel on him and his strength is restored. He resupplies his hot spring water shop in Castletown, and he leaves behind a piece of heart as our reward. At Lake Hylia, we find a colorful toucan, hanging around the hawkgrass lakeside. This is Plum. He will only speak to animals, so Link must transform into a wolf. Plum operates a minigame. To play this game, we can howl the Hawk tune while standing in the hawk grass in order to summon a giant Kargarok. We rode the Twilight form of this creature twice up the river already. This is the third ride up. This time we're traveling in the Light World, and the goal is to pop balloons shaped like fruit. The balloons have varying point values, and a multiplier is added to players' scores for popping multiple balloons of the same type in a row. If we get 10,000 points or more, Link is awarded with a heart piece. It's not too hard to secure that top score if we only collect the strawberries. It's interesting to note that in his Miiverse interview for Twilight Princess HD, Aonuma picked this minigame as his least favorite within Twilight Princess. He said, "It's not that I have any doubts about whether the game is fun in general, but I had to play the balloon popping game so many times to test the performance of the Wii Remote that in the end, I got pretty tired of it. Frankly, after 3 trips up the river, I'm done too." Just outside the Castletown South Gate, we find the hero Shade. This time he teaches Link the Helm Splitter. This was another parry attack that Link could occasionally perform in the Wind Waker. Now we can perform it manually by first shield attacking an opponent, then pressing the A button to do a jump attack and hit the enemy in the head as we jump over. This leaves them stunned for an attack from behind. Inside Castletown, we follow the path north from Agatha's palace to find a purple circus tent. Inside is the Star Game. It's run by a man named Perlo. He's frankly pretty shady, but also pretty smooth. The young girls who congregate outside his tent comment on how handsome they think he is and how they like his voice. Players who look closely may notice that Perlo looks familiar. Eiji Aonuma explained to Nintendo Dream. In early development stages, Yusuke Nakano, the main character designer, designed him after a realistic Tingle, and that became the base for this character. Tingle the character may have exited the series, but references to him continue on, with Perlo being the first. Like Tingle, he wears a green shirt with a pointed green hood, red pants, and he carries a pocket watch. Why didn't the developers just include Tingle? Aonuma suggests in that same interview it's because Tingle was starring in his own spin-off games in Japan at that time. Perlo's game, the Star Game, can only be won after players obtain the claw shot. It can be attempted before then, but it's not possible to win. With the claw shot in hand, however, we can beat Perlo's scam. Players need to collect colorful spheres of light within a certain time limit. If we manage to complete the game, Perlo is shocked. Winning should be impossible. He gives Link a large quiver and challenges him to return at a later time for a special, harder challenge, made just for him. Having won the game, Link also now has a fan club. The young girls who thought Perlo was attractive are now fans of Link, and they will produce recovery hearts if Link speaks to them. Let's get back to the main quest. As soon as we arrive at the bar, Telma introduces Link to the group that is working to address troubles in Hyrule. There are 3 of them in the back of the bar, sitting around the table with the map of the kingdom on it. Telma explains that a 4th member has gone to investigate a disturbance in the desert. 2 of the 3 members of Telma's group, known as the Resistance, introduce themselves. The first is Shad, a man who wears glasses and has red hair. He wears a purple jacket and a bow tie over a pink vest. He's a scholarly type who studies the legends and history of Hyrule. Next is Ashe, a woman warrior with long black hair and serious bangs. She grew up in the mountains with her father, who was a knight. Ashe lacks certain social graces, but she is trained in combat and the art of war. She's also interested in Snow Peak Mountain north of Zora's domain. She's looking into some odd happenings there, saying evil controls the mountain, and teasing that our adventure will soon take us there. The 3rd man wears a helmet with a mask that hides most of his face. He says nothing. If we check their map, they inform us that a 4th member of their group is at Lake Hylia, keeping an eye on the desert. We travel to Lake Hylia to find Oru. On the way, we find another Howling Stone. Unlike the other Howling Stones, it features a new song, seemingly written for Twilight Princess. It does not seem to have a name. The Zelda Encyclopedia refers to it only as Unnamed Song 1. As Link and the Golden Wolf howl together in the mystical realm, we notice the wolf is in front of a Colosseum-like structure. 6 pillars surrounding the structure reach high into the sky. Each is topped with the symbols of the Sage Medallions from Ocarina of Time. One symbol is noticeably cracked and broken. The wolf challenges us to find him, and he appears on an unrevealed portion of the map. Beyond the Howling Stone is a tall stone tower. We find Oru at the top. He's an older man with a short gray mohawk, or maybe it's more of a faux hawk, and a gray Fu Manchu mustache and goatee. He wears brown overalls with a white shirt and a brown hood. He points to the structure surrounded by the massive pillars which we saw behind the gold wolf. He tells us it used to be a prison. It housed the worst of the worst, who were sent directly to the underworld through a cursed mirror. Oro believes the trouble plaguing Hyrule is related to the prison and the mirror inside. There is no road leading to the desert. Link will need to travel by cannon. Oru gives him a note to show to Fire in order to make the trip. Fire agrees to shoot Link into the desert after reading the note. He says this trip is free, any additional flights will cost him. Upon landing in the Gerudo Desert, Midna tells Link that there's something she needs to explain. She then explains the interlopers, who were spoken of by Lanayru and who created the fused shadow, were chased across Hyrule by the goddesses, and were banished to another realm. This realm is the antithesis of Hyrule, the Twilight realm. The interlopers are her people, the Twilight. Midna says the Twilight realm was a peaceful place until Zant seized control. He transformed the Twilight into shadow beasts. Midna says she now understands that Zant is using a different, evil power, rather than the power of her people. The Mirror of Twilight was left behind by the goddesses, as the one remaining link between the Light World and the Twilight realm. With the mirror, they can travel to the Twilight realm and face Zant. The music of the desert is a new arrangement of what I call Link's Courage theme. It's the A section, or main theme. It's been rendered using instruments that give off a stereotypical desert vibe, with a synth choir taking the melody. It's a fantastic and fitting rendition of this theme. The prison structure with its pillars is visible to the north. A smaller white pillar is opposite it. I always head for this smaller pillar first. I have since the very first time that I played this game back in 2007 or so. It turns out it's the missing chunk of the Bridge of Eldin. When we get there, we are of course attacked by shadow beasts, so we can create a fast travel portal. We can then use Midna's ability to transport objects along with Link to put the chunk of bridge back in place. This is the third time that we've used this ability, and it's the only optional use. There is a cave under the chunk of bridge. I saved that for later in the game. We'll come back to it. For now, it's time to head to the prison. Outside of the prison is a Boblin camp. They've set up towers and barriers around the prison, clearly trying to keep people out. Of course, we break in. We steal one of the giant boars known as Bulbos and ride it as part of our raid on the camp. When we spur on the boar, it rides wildly, almost out of control. In this state, the boar can smash through wooden structures and barriers erected by the Boblins. We find the Gold Wolf, or Hero's Shade, just beyond the first Boblin barricade. The new skill it teaches is known as the Mortal Draw. Link can perform a one-hit kill with this move. It involves putting away his sword and not using Z targeting. Players quickly draw Link's sword with the A button when an enemy is near to deal an instant death blow. Only 2 skills are left. We move through a second Boblin camp. This one is set within the crumbling outer walls of the prison structure. We fight our way through a number of Boblins in order to get a small key. It opens a large wooden door. Through the door we find a pen for the giant boar mouths of the Boblins. A pair of glowing eyes appear in a dark corner of the room. It's revealed that they belong to King Boblin. He's looking even more beat up since we last saw him. Both horns are now broken. He wields a giant axe, which he uses to knock the boar out of the way. Then, the boss fight begins. Repeated boss fights are common within Zelda games. There hasn't been a mainline game in the series yet that hasn't featured at least one repeated boss. This is the third time that we've faced King Boblin. We fought him on horseback in the 2 previous meetings. There is a potential to have a 4th on-foot battle with him later in the game, in addition to this one. If he manages to hit Link, King Boblin deals significant damage. Link's backslice really comes in handy. Players can also avoid the King's attacks, and move in to strike him as he works to recover from a swing. After a number of hits, the King falls. He manages to struggle to his feet. His arm is clearly seriously wounded. As the King shuffles away, he lights the boar pen on fire. It's perhaps another realization of a cut idea from Ocarina of Time. As I covered in the prologue episode for this season, series co-creator Shigeru Miyamoto said he initially wanted Ingo to light the ranch on fire as a climax to the quest to obtain Epona in that game. With the pen burning, Link must quickly escape. And what better way to do that than by riding the boar? We smash through the door and several barricades in order to reach the prison structure proper. Then it's just a quick ascent up a staircase and into the dungeon. The prison is known as the Arbiter's grounds. It's fitting for this prison space, after all, an arbiter is a judge or a decision maker. In the modern legal context, arbiters are intended to be a neutral decision maker who settles disputes. In this place, I think we're safe to assume that they decided the fates of the prisoners who were kept here. And as Oru said, many were put to death. Fittingly, the Arbiter's Grounds is a horror or death-themed dungeon, with a desert twist. It looks very desert dungeon in appearance, and it even has desert dungeon obstacles like quicksand. Yet the tone and the enemies we encounter are derived from horror themes. The music is also appropriately horror themed, starting out with a roar. Then, steady, heavy percussion comes in, initially backed by Tuvan throat singing. As those vocals fade out, a synth sounding like a distorted wailing female vocal comes in. It's all punctuated by additional percussion and occasional plucked strings that sound like they came from Lakebed Temple. The steady drums do drop out after a while, leaving just the backing track for a time. Then, the drum beat starts again. The plucked strings provide a hint of melody, though I don't think anyone would describe this piece as melodic. Atmospheric, uneasy, oppressive, not melodic. The dungeon spans 6 floors. It's divided into roughly 3 sections. When players first enter the dungeon, they have to fight their way through 3 rooms. They're mostly laid out in a straight line, though players will have to use the claw shot to avoid quicksand, while they dodge Moldorm enemies that got a redesign that seems to have been inspired by the Kevin Bacon classic, Tremors. We also have to deal with beetles that seem to have swarmed out of the Brendan Fraser classic, The Mummy, and the skeletal stall children who have a new, creepier design compared to past iterations. They also give out an unsettling shriek when they're defeated. After getting through those first rooms, we come to the central room of the first section of the dungeon. It establishes a theme for the section, which is clearly Ocarina of Time's Forest Temple revisited. 4 Poes appear and steal 4 blue flames from torches on the north end of the room. This causes the door leading forward to close, just like the Forest Temple before it. Players will have to hunt down and defeat each of the Poes. How the hunting happens is different, however. The first of the Poes stays in the room with Link. As with all other Poes, Link can only fight this one in wolf form. Unlike other Poes, these ones are tall with roughly human proportions. They wear hooded robes, and their faces appear desiccated like a mummy. When we tear the soul from the Poe, the stolen blue flame will relight the torch that it was stolen from. The first Poe stayed in the room with Link because, in addition to looking like death, these Poes apparently smell like it too. Link can learn the Poe scent, which he will use to track the Poes through the dungeon. The scent leads players to each of the Poes. The layout of the early rooms also pretty clearly sets an order that the Poes are intended to be found in. However, it is possible that players could miss one of them, and then wind up doing things in a variety of orders. It's worth poking around in the central room before we go hunting down the rest of the Poes. We can find a piece of heart and the map in chests on the opposite sides of pools of quicksand in the corners of this room. The scent first leads us to a buried chain lever. We dig it up and then pull it. This reveals a set of stairs in the floor leading down to the first basement level. Here we find a round room with walls that can rotate. Another callback to the Forest Temple from Ocarina of Time. We rotate the walls to open an alcove which contains a sword-wielding mummy enemy. This is a new version of the Gibdo, the mummy enemies of the Zelda series. Though this version has acquired the fear-inducing scream of the Re-Dead that will freeze Link in place. I find that these are best defeated as Wolf Link. A jump attack results in a mauling that will prevent the mummy from screaming. A chest in the alcove with the mummy contains a small key. When we rotated the room, we also opened a hole in the ceiling. This is the path leading to the first Poe. The scent of the Poe will help players find it, but players also just need to be aware of the 3D space that they're in. We clawshot our way up. With the room rotated this way, we can access a door to the north that would otherwise be hidden. Through this door, we find a room with blue lanterns hung on the wall. Using Link's wolf senses, we can find that one lantern is actually held by a Poe. We defeat the Poe, and the second flame returns to the central room. We then backtrack and go down to that rotating room, and we return it to its original position. We head back upstairs, and then go through a door above which leads through the rotating room. With the room back in its original position, we have access to a locked door on the opposite entrance. We navigate a short maze of spikes which only appear when you're near them, similar to Ocarina of Time's Fire Maze or the Wind Waker's Vine Maze. We use a chain lever to lift a giant chandelier in order to reach a second rotating room. We can grab the compass from a chest before we rotate the room. Then we rotate it and grab a key from a chest in a newly revealed alcove. Then we pass through a newly revealed locked door. Through this locked door, we fight our way through stalled children and Gibdos while avoiding pits of quicksand. The scent leads us to a hidden chain lever, which opens a wall revealing the third Poe. As we loop back into the central room, there is a shock moment for players. After grabbing a key from a small chest, Link will begin to move slowly. If Link is in wolf form, Midna will begin to freak out. When we use Link's wolf senses, it will be revealed that he's covered in ghost rats. We can get them off and defeat them at the same time by using a spin attack. The path forward takes us through the central room, but on an upper level. We cross the room using a massive chandelier, and then go into the opposite wing of the dungeon. This room was accessible before, but players could not get far into it, because of a metal block. By entering from the upper level, we can take a set of stairs down from the balcony in order to find that metal block. We can then push it and open a shortcut, while also creating a path for Link to walk on while he pulls another chain lever. This time the path forward is not beyond the chandelier, but perpendicular to it. Players need to realize that there's a hole in the center of the chandelier. That means they can let it drop on themselves, and then use it to reach the door. Through the door we come across our first Stalfos of the game. These skeletal knights are a classic enemy in the Zelda series, and the Twilight Princess version pays homage to the Stalfos Knights from A Link to the Past, meaning that we need to use a bomb in order to destroy them. We can't just fight them normally with the sword and then place a bomb on their pile of bones after they collapse, or we can kill them in one shot with a bomb arrow. I fought the first one I encountered normally with the sword, and then I stuck almost exclusively to bomb arrows after that. Frankly, this dungeon has the best use of the scent mechanic yet, and a lantern puzzle on the path to the fourth and final Poe may be the best use of the scent mechanic in the entire game. I completely forgot about this puzzle when I returned to the game for this podcast. I completed my Hero Mode HD playthrough first, and when I did, I ran right into this room and I started lighting torches without putting much thought into it. My initial idea was that it was going to be a timed trial, but the moment I lit 2 torches, the door closed, and I was swarmed by stall-child enemies. There are 2 specific torches to light, which we determine by the scent of the Poe. We look and see which torches it lit, and then we light only those 2 in order to advance. The fourth and final Poe is the second to hide in a room that's lined with blue lanterns. However, in yet another nod to Ocarina of Time, this Poe differentiates itself by splitting into 4. Meg the Poe also split into 4 in Ocarina of Time. In that game, we told her apart from her duplicates by watching for her to spin around. In this game, the real Poe will turn purple just before attacking. Once all 4 Poes have been defeated, the door in the central room opens, and we can begin the second segment of the dungeon. The second segment is all about acquiring the dungeon item. The first room we come to in this segment has a crumbled wall that we can see through, but we can't pass through it yet. The rotating mechanism is broken. A gear-shaped indentation is in the floor. The big key chest is also clearly visible, but out of reach. There is only one path forward. It leads to a room with an unusual elevator. The floor of the elevator sits on a central threaded pillar. When we first enter the door, the floor is near the bottom, and there's no way to call this elevator up. Instead, we use the hookshot to descend by targeting anchor points on a number of alcoves down the shaft. It really does remind me of the central shaft of the Wind Temple in the Wind Waker, but it is ultimately its own thing. When we reach the floor, we use a center lever in order to raise the room up 2 levels, and then we grab a key from a chest. We then descend to the bottom and go through a locked door. We navigate another spike maze similar to the Wind Waker's Vine Maze. The room is also filled with ghost rats, so Wolf Link is a must. We dodge spike traps, which move along tracks on the walls, as we deal with quicksand and also scarab beetles. Uku is tucked away in an alcove opposite the door. This is the farthest into a dungeon we've ever found her. We pass by more spike traps, stalfos, scarab beetles, quicksand, and hookshot targets, on our way to a round room in the north-central area of basement level 2. Inside the room we find a great sword driven into the ground. It's further bound to the earth by ropes, and hung from these ropes are talisman, made from strips of cloth or maybe paper. I'm really not familiar with what these are, but I understand they're a type of ofuda, which are talismans that are common in Japan. From what I can glean from just a quick read-through of the Wikipedia page, they can be made from a variety of materials, and some are intended to provide protection. These ofuda are clearly intended to bind the sword, and protect whoever did the binding. Link, of course, breaks that protection by cutting one of the ropes. The sword raises from the ground and attacks Link. This is Death Sword, the mini-boss of the dungeon. The music for the fight maintains the classic Desert Arabian Nights feel for this region. It's mystical and pulse-pounding, with a rhythm that gets the blood pumping. The fight plays out in 2 phases. The first phase is somewhat reminiscent of the fights with the giant Stalfos Knights in Four Swords Adventures. We can see the sword, but not the creature. That is, until we transform into a wolf and use Link's wolf senses. After one mauling jump attack, the second phase of the boss fight begins. The ghostly apparition becomes solid, a face covering is removed. The creature is roughly humanoid, but its head is a skull with curled ram horns. It has a medium-length snout and wicked sharp teeth. In this second phase, we hit Death Sword with an arrow. That starts a damage phase and we can wail away on him with the sword. It's a fairly easy fight, and it doesn't take too long, but the spectacle and the feeling of the fight, from the cutting of the ropes to the revealing of the demonic creature, all feel great. As does the moment the creature dies. It bursts into bugs which fly away out of the room. It invokes the plagues of Egypt to my mind. In a chamber beyond the boss room, we find a chest with the dungeon item. It sits beneath a gear symbol on the wall. This gear symbol is yellow in color, which also invokes the sun. Inside the chest, we find the spinner. The spinner is a giant top that Link rides on. We're told that it's an ancient machine. The top of the spinner is gear-shaped and it will slot into tracks on the walls. Link travels at great speed when he's slotted into a track. He can also leap from a track and even attack enemies with the spinner with a press of the A button. It's Link's very own battling top. Acquiring the spinner signals the start of the 3rd segment of the dungeon. We use the spinner to exit the mini-boss room and head into the west wing of basement level 2, or the east wing in the mirrored version. Here we find a large multi-level room with spinner tracks running throughout. It's kinda like a skate park. There are several chests scattered throughout the room. One holds the second heart piece for the dungeon. The others don't hold anything particularly noteworthy. We ride the tracks back up to the first floor and pass through a door leading to the big key chest. Then it's just a quick hop back to the room with the gear-shaped indentation in the floor. The spinner fits in perfectly, and with a steady press of the A button we can make Link pump the spinner, causing the wall to rotate and open the path forward. We use the spinner and another gear-shaped indentation in order to raise a spiraling track up to the boss door. Link finds himself in a round room with a pit of sand. Partially submerged in the sand is the skeleton of a giant monster. Its horned head and long arm with a clawed hand stick out of the sand. The monster's head is filled with spears. This creature apparently went down during an intense fight with multiple foes. As Link approaches the monstrous skeleton, a deep laugh fills the air. Not long after, Zant appears. Zant says he's astonished that Link is still alive. However, he says this is where Link will meet his ultimate end. He uses his magic to produce a wicked-looking black sword. He then drives it down into the skull before teleporting away. The creature's eyes begin to glow, and it raises up, summoned back to life. This is the Twilight fossil, Stallord. The Stallord boss battle is split into 2 phases. In the first phase, the music is a repeat of the first phase music from the Diababa fight back in the Forest Temple. The upper rim of the sandy basin that Stallord sits in is a spinner track, and this is a battle on a top. But a face-off between Wolf and the murderous Mariah, this is not. It's more like a game of pinball. If we land a hit with the spinner on its spine, the vertebrae will break. The trick is that when Link moves into attack, undead soldiers rise out of the sand. If Link hits them, he will bounce off of these soldiers. We need to avoid the soldiers in order to hit the vertebrae, all while doing our best to avoid being hit ourselves. After 3 hits, Stallord falls. Sand drains out of the arena, but the fight isn't over yet. We use the spinner in a gear-shaped indentation. This causes a central pillar to raise up. It has a spiraling track along the outside. Once the pillar rises up to its full height, Stallord's head comes back to life. The monster knocks Link off the pillar, and the second round of the fight begins. The music is a new arrangement of the dinosaur boss theme from Ocarina of Time. That boss theme was shared by King Dodongo and Volvagia. This new version is bigger and more dramatic than those previous versions. Here's a reminder of how it sounded like in Ocarina of Time. And here it is in Twilight Princess. We need to ride up the central pillar in order to reach Stallord. When we get high enough on the track, the creature appears. It spits energy balls at Link. We can jump from the central pillar to a series of parallel tracks along the outer wall. With each jump between the wall and the pillar, Stallord gets closer until we hit it. We knock it to the ground. Once on the ground, we can wail away and hit the sword that's in its skull. We repeat this 2 more times and the boss falls for good. In a change from the usual, rather than having Midna create a portal to exit, a door to the outside opens. We head out and up to the top of the dungeon. It recalls the end of the Wind Waker's Tower of the Gods, while still being its own distinct thing. On the roof of the building, we fight a group of shadow beasts in order to open a fast travel portal. We also find a goddess statue with a track around it. There's a spinner indentation on the top of the head. Spinning the gears in the statue causes it to retract into the floor, while great chains pull taut and reveal a massive black stone. A small platform with the Mirror of Twilight rises out of the sand in front of the stone. Except... Midna discovers the mirror is broken. High above Link and Midna, atop the pillars that are each marked with a medallion of the sages, spirits appear. They are robed figures glowing white. Their hands are detached at the wrist and float near their bodies. They have no face, but instead a mask, depicting the face of a bearded man. These are the sages in Twilight Princess. These sages explain that they have guarded the Mirror of Twilight at the order of the goddesses since ancient times. It seems the mirror was shattered by dark magic, the source of which is one man. His name is Ganondorf. These sages say that in an age-long past he was the head of a band of thieves. Ganondorf invaded Hyrule, but he did not know that the sages saw him coming. Ganon was captured and taken to the Arbiter's grounds. The sages then attempted to carry out an execution before the Mirror of Twilight. He was run through with a glowing white blade, but through what the sages deemed to be a divine prank, Ganon was granted a piece of the Triforce. Through sheer power, he survives, breaking his shackles. He claims the lives of one of the sages, the Sage of Water. Seeing as they have no way to overpower Ganondorf, the sages use the Mirror of Twilight. They send him to the Twilight Realm. These sages believe Ganon's evil power has been passed on to Zant. Further, they explain that only the true leader of the Twilight can destroy the mirror. Even with his great power, Zant could only shatter it into 4 pieces. One remains at the Arbiter's grounds. The sages reveal the locations of the others in a way that recalls Sheik outlining Link's quest in Ocarina of Time. One shard is in the Snowy Mountain Heights, another in an ancient grove. The final shard is in the heavens. The sages say that Link and Midna should be able to gather these fragments, but they warn of the dark power those fragments hold. With their goals clearly outlined, Link and Midna are ready to gather the fragments. We'll find the first one next week. If you want to follow along, please subscribe. If you've already subscribed, thank you. You are awesome. I'm Paul Riley, and I will see you next week.